one thing after another.
We're here to make money, and we're making money.
We're gonna have to follow suit.
It's not going very good at all. It's horrible.
From finding priceless gold reserves together to doing business in millions, Todd Hoffman and Parker Schnabel were just two peas in a pod. But they never really got along, and since the beginning of the show, their rivalry continued to get worse. Gold Rush is one of the most famous reality shows, and Parker and Todd probably are the star cast of this show. So their feud did help the show to get a lot of ratings, but it also resulted in the decline of Gold Rush. These two did try to be a little friendly in the beginning of the show, but things went straight downhill from this point onwards because the two weren't ready to put their foot down in any matter and continued their rivalry till things got so bad that the producers had to do something shocking. So stay with us to find out what really happened between Parker Schnabel and Todd Hoffman.
They're never gonna make it.
You know they're amateurs when they dig through with their fingers and look for it. Don't know what they're doing.
Todd Hoffman was one of the leading men from the first season of Gold Rush, and he was actually standing out among all the novice gold seekers. Right off the bat, people knew that Hoffman has an eye for correct gold locations, and it turned out to be true because he mustered up a whole lot of gold in the initial season. The other families were actually shocked at how exactly Hoffman was doing all this. But he had done it his whole life, so he knew which equipment to use and how to get a bigger chunk of gold without breaking it. Then came John Schnabel, who wasn't a treat to be around obviously. He also worked in the industry for a really long time and had a lot of experience in finding gold, but he couldn't do much on the show. He knew that he couldn't compete with Todd, and he could continue trying, but he probably lost his edge, so he decided to let his grandson take the lead. And as soon as Parker Schnabel, the grandson, came along, the audiences could feel the tension between him and Todd Hoffman. They weren't at each other's throats from day one, but there was still some friction as soon as season 2 started.
What's going on?
We hit our 5,000 ounce goal, which is really sweet.
But this is not good.
And now we're going for 6,000 ounces.
One thing after another.
But Parker wasn't like his grandfather, and he actually was hell-bent on giving Hoffman a very tough competition because his eye for gold was matchless, and among everything else, he was really young too. So Todd Hoffman also started feeling a little threatened by him because he was very confident and good at his work. So Todd didn't want Parker to get on his nerves from the very beginning. That's why he continued to avoid helping him or even taking any help from him. They did some business together, but it profited both of them, so they put their differences aside for a while, but there was still a lot of unsolved arguments between them. Schnabel and Hoffman were both flourishing in Gold Rush at that time, but Hoffman had put in a lot more effort to get good results, while Parker Schnabel was a natural, and things just came effortlessly to him. In fact, in his early seasons, Parker got so good at what he did that he wanted to expand his operations further. But as it was only the beginning for him, he didn't have a lot of heavy equipment that might help him in the expansion process, so he decided to take Hoffman's help as the big guy was known for his wide range of mining equipment. Schnabel approached Todd Hoffman and tried to strike a good deal with him so he could at least begin expanding. Hoffman didn't seem interested in helping Schnabel at all, and that's probably because he always saw Schnabel as a threat. But Schnabel knew what he needed to say, and he got straight to business by offering a lot of value for Hoffman's wash plant equipment. Hoffman was surprised that Schnabel would be foolish enough to demand something that hasn't been very helpful and has hardly ever found him any gold. Hoffman even left the machine out in the open after trying to garner some business out of it. He thought he's never going to use it, but now he was actually getting some good value for this machine. Parker Schnabel offered about 700 grams of gold in exchange for the machine, and it sounded like a pretty good offer considering how the machine hardly ever benefited him, and now he was getting really good value for it, which is about $46,000 even at that time. So Hoffman got greedy and immediately agreed to Schnabel's offer, thinking that the young miner doesn't know the tricks of the trade. But Schnabel was just luring him in because he needed something else too. He then requested Hoffman to also give him his dozer, for which he'll be making a payment soon. Hoffman immediately refused because he never really liked the guy, and to think that a 21-year-old had the nerve to operate a dozer and expand his business even more than Hoffman wasn't something acceptable for him. But Schnabel offered him 2,800 grams of gold, and he immediately agreed. But Hoffman wasn't going to regret taking all that money in exchange for his equipment. It's mainly because as soon as Schnabel got all this equipment and expanded his operations, he was practically bathing in gold. He got so successful in each one of his expeditions and got so high profits that people even started questioning Todd Hoffman's experience. Todd, on the other hand, wasn't getting a lot of profit, and he was getting more and more frustrated with every passing day. He desperately needed a win, and that made him even more bitter towards Parker Schnabel. And soon, Hoffman refused to help Todd out in any issue, and the friction between them turned into a full-fledged rivalry.
You're 21 years old, man. I thought you would go for like 10,000 ounces.
I'm a real underachieving 21-year-old, that's for sure, Todd.
Yeah, there you go. What do you think? You've achieved everything? Because you get a little gold in your pocket?
And this rivalry wasn't just limited to them, because even their crew didn't get along well and got into frequent brawls. Todd and Schnabel exchanged some pretty hard and heavy words at so many instances, and it was clear that their partnership was never going to happen. Todd Hoffman actually left the show after working with Parker for a couple of seasons because things weren't working out between the two and the environment of the show was getting worse. People were fed up with the two industry giants bickering all the time, and it also started affecting the show's ratings, so Hoffman had to leave the show. He also wasn't getting a lot of profit, and it was getting harder to manage all the crew expenses, and his mental health was also getting affected with the constant presence of Parker. So he thought that he was better off without the gold rush. Todd Hoffman also gave an interview in which he says that as professionals, they mutually respect each other, but he doesn't really like Schnabel, and that's the fact. Hoffman didn't let it go easy, as he went on to say that he couldn't just ignore it if someone close to him starts disrespecting a really experienced and old worker. So it seems like Parker Schnabel isn't very kind to the crew, and Hoffman spotted him misbehaving with older people, and according to Hoffman, that's the reason why he doesn't really like him or get along with him well. Hoffman was really used to a lot of attention on the show, so as soon as Parker Schnabel came along, all the attention went to him because he wasn't just young, but also very talented, and he was doing pretty well for himself. So it was really hard for Hoffman to recover from that. As soon as this interview was released, Parker also gave an interview, after which everyone was quite certain that he knows how much Hoffman really hates him. He started off by saying that yes, Hoffman doesn't like him at all. He doesn't really know if this dislike is because Parker is doing everything right or everything wrong, but there obviously is a lot of tension between the two. He didn't use as strong of a word as hate, but he did say that it's bordering towards hate. And it was pretty clear with how often Hoffman picked fights with Parker and how they got into arguments even on the most unbelievable things. Parker didn't reveal what he feels for Hoffman, but he surely knows that he's in the lead here, and it's probably because of his success that Hoffman dislikes so much. And Parker is used to this hate now, so he doesn't really care anymore. Besides, Hoffman has also gone on to call Parker arrogant and out of touch, so these are some of the things that people agree with, but they also say that Parker has actually earned the right to be arrogant, so we can't really blame him.